So greetings everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting. It's really fantastic to see so many now familiar faces back together again after our recent hard work in Batley. And it's a perfect moment really, isn't it, to take stock of where we are. And I think the first thing that we have to say is how proud we should be of all our achievements so far as a party in just 18 months of our existence. And the thing that really sets us apart from all the other self-identifying left groups is that we are not just talking, we're making facts on the ground. And that is absolutely indisputable at this point. And it starts because we know what we stand for. We've got a beautiful 10-point programme, it's perfectly crafted, it presents the essence of socialism to our class in a really digestible form. It's an easy sell to the working class. There's a beautiful quote from the Black Panther, Fred Hampton, there was a film, a new biopic about him, which I would really recommend people to watch. It's beautiful, it's inspirational. And the United States ruling class was right to be worried about somebody like him. And we have every intention of producing too many people like him to be got rid of. But he said to workers, if you're scared of socialism, you're scared of yourselves. And I feel that we can say that about our 10-point programme. If you're scared of the 10-point programme, you're scared of the working class. You're scared of the potential of your own people to do anything. You're scared of yourselves. And really the only worker who couldn't get behind our programme is what do they call it? A self-hating worker. Someone who's been taught to have a total slave mentality. It's the only rational explanation for not being able to get behind a programme like ours, and it speaks straight away, it connects with people. When they have the chance to see it, it connects with them. And at the same time, it keeps out all kinds of people who have divided and weakened the working class movement for so long. It repels the Trotskyites in particular, but it also repels all kinds of fake socialists, the ones who, when they talk about socialism, what they really mean is a kinder, nicer face for imperialism at home. And in return for that, they don't really care what imperialism does anywhere else, and they're prepared to settle for the status of slave within the system in perpetuity. Just make it look a bit kinder. Let us have a tiny little bit more of the pie, and that will do. So we're building on this, a really solid foundation. And no one else has the ability that we have to bring together really diverse but honest elements from our class, but also from what remains of the British Labour movement. George's qualities, his reach, they're incontestable and incomparable. No one else on the left, with which increasingly we do not identify ourselves, could do what George did in Batley. His track record on so many vital fronts of the class struggle and anti-imperialism speaks for itself. And on the other hand, no one else has such a band of activists and supporters behind them. The commitment, the dedication of our people is second to none. And because of all this, we're continuing to attract and train the brightest and the best of our class. Many of our people are new to politics, but they're learning fast. They want to learn. They're learning the essential elements of what it takes to build a truly working class organisation. We're training new working class representatives, and we're going to keep doing that. And our people are learning to organise. They're learning to speak. They're learning to speak up for their class. Our branches are getting out to events that matter to working people. I hope everybody's seen the recent video from Liverpool of our member there, Liam, the mental health nurse, speaking up at the NHS Pay 15 rally. Yeah. It's inspirational. These are the people we're bringing out of the ranks of the working class to represent the class, the best elements of the class, speaking up on behalf of workers, for socialism, for social justice, for advance, for the 10-point programme, for the Workers' Party, for socialism. possible when you have the forces in an area to make meaningful connections with a community. We have to congratulate our comrades here for being right at the forefront of organising the anti-LTN activities here, and in the process showing how a real working class organisation can direct the energies and the aspirations of our class on everyday issues which are really important to workers, but which most of the self-identifying left would never touch with a barge pole. And in the process, our people are earning the respect and the recognition of the community, and of people who never would have imagined that they would have anything to do with socialists. We've come a really long way, comrades, in a very short time, and we intend to keep that momentum going, to keep building on every advance, to keep doing as well as talking. Because not only do we do better than the talking shop lefties, we also talk better than the talking shop lefties. And to prove that point, let me hand over to our tireless speaker.
Brilliant segue, making the point that you just have, that we can even talk better than the talking shop lefties. Thank you for that excellent introduction, Joti, and thank you, comrades, for the warmth of your welcome. I think Joti said what needs to be said. I'll try to build on it, but the essentials are there in what Joti said. We are building a party which was deliberately constructed in a way that it would repel the Trotskyite wreckers who've wrecked everything. I was thinking while you were talking of a very famous Trotskyite, she's very famous and still alive, I'll not mention her name, who said to me in the Royal Courts Theatre just after the destruction of Iraq that if there had still been a Soviet Union, they would never have dared to do that. And I said, but you spent the last 50 years trying to destroy the Soviet Union, which you now concede would have been a major barrier to an imperialist catastrophe. And I was thinking while you were talking about the others that we deliberately seek to repel. The liberals, who've given the left such a bad name that we actually are quite proud actually now to say we are not left, we are socialist. Yeah. That's not what people think in their minds is socialist. This leftism, which is really liberalism, which is effectively capitalism plus cycle lanes. Capitalism plus rainbow flags. Capitalism where everyone speaks in a quiet voice and doesn't frighten anybody. Capitalism with the correct personal pronouns. That's liberalism. It might be right, it might be wrong, it might be good or bad, but it ain't socialism. Socialism has nothing to do with these things. We don't care about people's personal lives or where they came from, what colour they are, how they pray, whether they pray or don't pray. We're only interested in the super division which exists in society between the have-nots and the have-yots, between those who own and those who work for those who own. Somebody said the other day on Twitter, I recall responding to it, that you know, we owe a debt of gratitude to Jeff Bezos for his genius in inventing Amazon. And I made the point, I didn't have enough characters to make the whole point, I'll make the whole point now. First of all, there's a lot of people working for Amazon would have something to say about the genius of Jeff Bezos. But what's so great about Amazon? The people, us, who built the first industrial revolution have no need of a Jeff Bezos. It's just a big warehouse and a delivery fleet and the ability to connect to the internet. The idea that we could not have our own British Amazon is a ridiculous idea. Equally with Zuckerberg's genius at making Facebook, it's just an electronic blackboard that you write on. The idea that we need him, that we need them, that we need Richard Branson, that we need any of these capitalist moguls is ridiculous. Amazon works because the workers in Amazon make it work. It's the people that stack the shelves, empty the shelves, load the trucks, drive the trucks. It's the people that made the things that Amazon is selling that made the wealth. All he did was bring it together. And helpfully, now it is together and quite big. It's actually rather easily taken over by the country, by the workers, to run it for themselves. That's what socialism is. Not about the personal pronouns or the bicycle lanes or all these other things that are what has made the left rather hated, actually, in the country. And we don't want to be identified with that or with them. Of course, I want to thank everyone here who participated in the epic battle. I think it will come to be seen as an historic political battle in Batley and Spen, which isn't over yet. We have a very, very strong case to have the election result set aside, in which case you'll all have to do it all over again. Hallelujah. Nothing comes without a price, no victory comes without a price, and that will be a price worth paying. Because what has been reported in the endlessly, actually, I get a Google alert when my name is mentioned, I no longer even read them, I just look at the headline. The endlessly rehashed pack of lies reminds me of how I felt in the run-up to the war on Iraq, when everything that the state and its media were saying was not just untrue, but the precise opposite of the truth. And I was sort of uniquely placed to feel that angst because I would listen to people from the dispatch box saying things that I absolutely knew to be untrue, to the extent of naming places where there were weapons of mass destruction when I had actually been in that place the week before. It's quite actually stressful to hear people say, to read what people have written when they are the precise opposite of the truth. We were the victims of electoral fraud. We were the victims of intimidation, the victims of destruction of property. And there are plenty of people in this room can testify to that. The nastiness and division about which they speak, we were the victims of it, not the perpetrators of it. And helpfully, cameras never lie. Some of the biggest lies in recent political history that were spoken about us are easily disproved by video and photographic evidence. So we have a strong case and we will pursue it to the end, because democracy matters. If people can just steal elections, why participate in them? Why vote in them if the result is so predetermined that potentially thousands of votes arrive in black plastic bin bags in the dead of night with no seal, no protection against potentially massive electoral fraud. But we won the Batley and Spen by-election without winning. We won it because we were the story. Nobody wanted to talk about anything else except us. And now, weeks after the event, that remains true. To which I can only say, wait till the next one. And I don't mean in Batley and Spen. It would be invidious in public to delineate the future contests that lie ahead, but be sure there are 1, 2, 3 by-elections waiting to happen, and we will be fighting either in our own guise as the Workers' Party of Britain, or helping others who may be in a better position than us. We will be an electoral factor now, haunting what is still called the Labour Party, but which is the antithesis of a Labour Party, haunting it all the way into the history books, because that's where they are rapidly headed. From a party point of view, we did not force the downfall of Keir Starmer. From a party point of view, that's a jolly good thing. The very best outcome for us is a discredited and electorally wounded Keir Starmer to continue as the head of the Labour Party for as long as possible. From a party point of view, that's obvious. Every day that goes by in which he leads the Labour Party ever downwards, now not 20 points ahead as we were promised when Jeremy Corbyn was so rudely defenestrated, but getting on for 20 points behind the atrocious Boris Johnson government, a circus full of clowns and crooks, and Labour is in double digits behind them. And the relaunch of Keir Starmer in Blackpool yesterday was actually pitiful, laughable, really literally laughable. You could not watch this man and not laugh or cry, depending on your perspective. But from the country's point of view, from the point of view of the working class, it is a disaster that the Labour Party is self-destructing in front of us, because many workers still have illusions in the Labour Party. We have a parliamentary system. A parliament needs an opposition. Britain doesn't have an opposition. I mean, to call them two cheeks of the same arse, as I usually do, is actually rapidly becoming a misnomer. There is only one cheek in the arse. The other cheek is missing, which is not a pretty sight. Only leaves one cheek and you know what. It is, from the country's point of view, from the point of view of democracy, it is a lamentable failure. And yet still there are people, and I appeal to them now, still there are people who are clinging to the fantastic illusion, the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, that somehow Labour can be reclaimed, whatever that means, can be somehow recovered. I mean, recovered to what would be a whole different argument. I'll not even waste time on it, because it is obvious that it cannot be. The purges of people that think that way continue apace. The court defeats for people who are spending unpayable legal bills to try and force the Labour Party to behave like a Labour Party are now legion. There's another case lost this week. I think they were mainly Jewish members of the Labour Party that took the party to court for purging them for anti-Semitism, even though they're Jewish. It's a tragedy. As I say, from our party point of view, it's good, but it's a tragedy for all those people that are still in the Labour Party, still clinging to the illusion that somehow Starmer might go and be replaced by who? By what? By Angela Rayner? And she's the best. by Andy Burnham. Would you have to create another by-election first? That would be interesting. All by-elections are interesting to us now. It's a fantasy. It's a tragedy and a fantasy at one and the same time. So there must come a point. Chris Williamson, I think, has now reached it and got dog's abuse for doing so. The game's up. The Labour Party game is up. And it needs to come to an end. And self-respecting socialist people in the Labour Party have got to leave it. Trade unions have got to stop funding it. Don't give working class people's money to an anti-working class organisation led by a steward called Starmer. For God's sake. So, I think the future looks better for us than we could ever have imagined. That cold day in West Bromwich, in that wonderful setting that we had our launch meeting in just 18 months ago. Everybody knows us now. The last time I sat at this table, I said to you that by the time this Batley and Spen by-election is over, everybody's going to know our name. And that came true. And we're going to show in any future by-elections that there's more than me in the leadership of the Workers' Party. You think I was bad? We've got others. You didn't like me? Try him. Try her. We have a whole cadre developing of brilliant campaigners, increasingly excellent propagandists. We don't shy from the word propaganda. Propaganda is what is done to us. Our propaganda is better than yours. I just saw, yesterday I think, a 10-year-old effort by Krishnan Guru Murthy on Channel 4 News on Cuba, where I had the misfortune to be not in the studio in Manchester, so a time lag, which he sought to exploit by badgering and talking over and so on and so on. When I looked at it, it was like, if you'll forgive me saying so, it was like Muhammad Ali fighting, I don't know, Joe Bugner. He tried everything he could to discredit what I was saying in defense of Cuba, to discredit Cuba, to disrespect Fidel, who I think had may even have just died or something had happened. He's just stepped down as leader. And he totally failed on every count. He was left on the canvas, knocked out by the end of it. Not just because I'm quite good at what I do, of course I should be, I've been doing it for 50 years, but because of the superiority of our arguments. Because Cuba is an icon, an example of what could be and what one day will be in the world. A country where money doesn't rule, where ethics rule. Warts and all, problems and all, hiccups and all. Cuba's achievements as a poor third world country are so undeniable that they have to smear it and lie about it. As I pointed out on Twitter, the Cuban people have been so oppressed, they've ended up with the longest life expectancy of any developing country anywhere in the world. So oppressed, they've ended up with the lowest levels of infant mortality in any developing country anywhere in the world. So oppressed, they have a health service comparable to Scandinavia. So oppressed, virtually 100% of them are literate. So oppressed that out of 120 million children going to work instead of school around the world, not one of them is in Cuba. Not one child goes to work instead of school in Cuba. How's that for oppression? And insofar as there are weaknesses and more than weaknesses, anomalies in certain regards, so far as civil liberties and so on are concerned, well, that's explainable entirely by the fact that the United States is at their gates trying to destroy them. Hundreds of times they tried to assassinate the Cuban president Fidel Castro. Hundreds of times. They admit it. It's in all their documents. They even invaded Cuba in the Bay of Pigs fiasco. They have spent hundreds of billions of dollars trying to destroy Cuba, and you wonder why the Cubans are on their guard, as I pointed out on that Channel 4 interview. When Hitler was at the Channel ports trying to invade us, we suspended democracy completely. We suspended civil liberties completely. There was no free speech in Britain when Hitler was coming across the Channel. How could there be? How can anybody under siege from the most powerful country in the world have the kind of parliamentary democracy that we enjoy here in Britain? The rights to freely speak that we enjoy here in Britain. This is probably getting struck off Facebook even as I speak. The idea that you could walk around England when Hitler was threatening to invade us, proselytizing for Hitlerism, is of course ridiculous. They were all in wormwood scrubs, all the supporters of Adolf Hitler in Britain. And quite right too. And yet Cuba is judged by an entirely different metric. Cuba is not Valhalla. It's not heaven. But Haiti, next door, is very definitely hell. Very definitely hell, as any Haitian will testify. And as we can see, at least if you watch certain news broadcasts, it currently is going through another convulsive agony. That's next door to Cuba. That's who you should be comparing Cuba with, instead of comparing it with what we have, such as it is here in Britain. I hadn't intended to speak long about Cuba, but I do think it is important to do so. We don't want to be Cubans, by the way. And we don't want to go and live in Cuba. Well, some of us might. I see some people do. We don't want Cuba to be, or Britain to be Cuba. That's not what I'm saying here. But part of the crystal clarity that we have in our outlook, in our program, is that we recognize the achievements of places like Cuba and we defend them against imperialist aggression. And if necessary, we'll give our blood, our political blood here, in order to do so. Unlike some left-wing groups who are openly supporting the protests, which it's now clearly established, not by the Russians, but by independent analysis, was a carefully coordinated color revolution attempt by the United States of America. And there are parties on what calls themselves the left who are supporting what is a CIA-inspired attempt, not us. We will never, ever abandon either the achievements of the past or, in the case of Cuba, the continuing achievements today. We will defend it, not because we want to be Cubans, not because we want the Cuban system here. We are British. We live here. We live now. We want socialism in the colours of Britain. We want socialism in the colours of now. We don't live in the past. We don't have a shrine somewhere to other countries or other times. Unlike so many of the ultra-left and so many of the liberals. I was listening to that Steelers Wheel, Jerry Rafferty song coming down. Clowns to the left of us, jokers to the right. Here we are, stuck in the middle with the majority of the British people. We want to build socialism in the characteristics of Britain now. And that's our bottom line. We stand for the unity, the independence, and the territorial integrity of Britain. It's why we supported Brexit. It's why we oppose separatism. But make no mistake, we are for the workers. And the workers are most of the people in this country. Some people ask me sometimes, who are these workers? Well, the people that made this chair, that table, that painted that wall, made that car. Everything around us was made by workers. Unfortunately, too little was made by our workers here. And if we achieve power, that's something that will change. We don't want to just buy British, though we do. We want to build British. We want to make our own ships, make our own steel, produce our own energy, manufacture the things we use ourselves, put our country back to work, meaningful work. Not playing, casino games on a computer. No doubt there'll be work for the people on computers, don't get me wrong, I'm not that old-fashioned. But we mean real meaningful work that produces actual wealth that people need. And we can do it because we believe in the capacity of the British working class. We've done it before. We did it before anybody else. We led the world for a long time in our manufacture, in our in industry, in our inventiveness, in our ingenuity. We didn't change as a people. We can do that again. We can be Jeff Bezos. We can be Zuckerman. We can do the things that too many people still think we need them to be able to do. The last period that we've been through has demonstrated the truth of that assertion so well. All the people that are valued and paid the most were the least important in the period that we've just lived through. And all the people that were least valued, most poorly paid, and enjoying the least status became the people we absolutely depended upon. From the woman working in the shop, to the man delivering essential goods, to the men and women in the hospitals, keeping us alive, keeping the wolves from the door. All the people that are thought of as the bottom of the pile became the top of the pile, and everybody we thought of as the top became the least important. Who needed these moguls and magnates? But everybody needed the working woman and the working man. And that's the system that we not all that radical, when you think about it, this socialism that we stand for. It merely states that under the system we fight for, everyone would have to work, except those that were physically, mentally unable to do so, in which case there are responsibility to look after, but everyone will have to work, and everyone will share equitably in the wealth that is produced by that work. What's radical about that? I think that's common sense socialism. And that's what we stand for here in the Workers' Party of Britain. Thanks very much for that.
I'm not going to try and top that. We are going to break up now. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I hope you'll stick around and have a chat with us, have a drink with us downstairs, where there's beer and coffee to suit all the palates. We'll even do water if you're so
Very good
inclined.
coffee, by the way. Who's making that coffee? It's
Very
really
nice
good.
coffee. And yeah, stick around with us. But more importantly, we've got lots of work to do. You know, Batley was not a one-off, as we've made it clear. We've got lots more work to do. And we need to get back to our branches, to build those branches, to build on the recruitment that Batley has given us, the fresh wave of intake that we now have. We need to get those people active and on the streets and just keep the momentum going. There will be more electoral work, but electoral work is not our only work. Electoral work is an important platform for us to reach out to our class via and to cut through the media campaign of silence and disinformation. Even when they carry on with the disinformation, we at least can cut through the silence. And that's enormously important for us, actually. Even if they're telling lies about us, they're still talking about us. And as George says, we achieved our main objective with the Batley campaign, and that was to make sure that the widest possible number of people have heard of the Workers' Party. And believe me, they have. And we have to make sure they're going to keep doing so. We've got to build those branches, and we've got to build our capacity to put in an even bigger campaign the next time, one that really can't be ignored. We cannot let them say of us it was a flash in the pan, it was a fluke. We have to show that we can keep doing this. We can keep putting the wind up Labour. And let's not forget, Labour were terrified in Batley. That's the only reason why the day before they were briefing the press that they expected to lose. How did they not lose? Well, that's why we're going to court. But believe you me, a result like that, and the fear that we provoked, the anger that we provoked from their system, the wrath of the Labour machinery in Kirklees, you could feel it. The anger of paid Labour staffers and elected Labour councillors and council leaders and former councillors, and my goodness, the whole machinery pulled out all the stops, and the waves of enmity that were coming at us from that firmly entrenched, cabal that have been used to having everything their own way and nobody in a position to question them. We put the fear of God into them and let the Labour Party be on notice. We're coming to do it to you everywhere. You do not deserve the position that you have. We will not let you retain it. The working class is about to start fighting back.
Bravo!